Welcome to all of you. My name is Dr. Neha Desai from Department of Chemistry, RBNB College, Shri Rampur. Today I am going to discuss the capillary tubing, which is normally used in the HPLC instrumentation. So from paper number 392, that is CHA 392, I am going to deliver the next lecture from the HPLC instrumentation topic. So for capillary tubing, generally the capillaries are used which are having the outer diameter 1/6 to the original diameter. So what is normally the range of the internal diameter used? So the inner diameter which is used for the capillary tubing, it is in the range of 0.18, 0.25 mm, then 0.30 mm and 1.0 mm. So these are the various ranges used for the internal diameter of a capillary. Okay, now in case of capillary tubing, normally the materials which are used for making the capillary, they are steel, then Teflon, and one more is PEEK. The long form of PEEK is polyether ketone. So generally capillary tubings, they are made up of either a steel or Teflon or PEEK, that is polyether ketone. So what are the advantages of using this material? That is, all these material, they are well resistant to the chemical as well as they are corrosion resistant material. Hence, as they are corrosion resistant and chemical resistant material, they are most widely used. If you compare all these different types of things, that is most commonly used is steel and Teflon, but sometimes steel, it has a tendency to get corroded. So the better corrosion resistance is provided by the Teflon. And PEEK, where you are using the polyether ketone, it is it also provides a good chemical resistance as well as the good corrosion resistant, but it cannot withstand with a high pressure range. And what is the advantage of Teflon? That is, Teflon, it can withstand at a high pressure range, while PEEK, it cannot withstand with a high pressure range. Hence, for this purpose, these are the three different types of materials which are used for the preparation of capillaries. So capillary tubing, it is the most important thing, and for that one can choose in between either a steel or a Teflon or a PEEK. Now coming to the internal diameter, the internal diameter of the capillary, they are 1/6 to the original diameter or the external diameter. So what is necessary, that is, whenever you are dealing with the capillary tubing material, always you have to consider that there should not be the clogging in between the two materials. Whenever there is a clogging by using whenever you are using the HPLC technique, then it will lead to the extra peaks. So all the critical connections, they are made up of the capillary tubings in case of HPLC. So now the next is the fittings. The next point is fittings. All the atoms in the HPLC system are connected by using the fittings. So fittings, they are generally used for the attachment of different small atoms. So what you can say about the fitting, that is all the small parts or atoms in HPLC, they are connected by using the various types of fitting. That is, all the small parts or the atoms in HPLC are connected together by using fittings. So for fittings, generally two types of fittings are normally used. One is the steel fittings and another one is the plastic fittings. So generally steel fittings or plastic fittings, these are the two types of fitting materials used. What is the general diagrammatic representation for these connections or the fittings? They are made up of generally two parts. One is the capillary, second one is the fitting, and the uppermost part, that is ferrule. So ferrule plus fitting plus capillary. Combination of these three, it will form a connection. So how it looks actually, we will see. So this is the arrangement, that is capillary at the top provided with a fitting, and this fitting is provided at the end with a ferrule. So combination of these three, ferrule plus fitting plus capillary, it will form a high pressure connection. So this is the diagrammatic representation for the high pressure connection. Now, as we have already discussed, basically there are two types of fittings. One is the steel fittings and other one is the plastic fitting. Every fitting, it is provided with a ferrule. That is, sometimes the ferrule is directly attached to the fitting and sometimes you can detach the ferrule from the fitting. Most of the time plastic fittings, they are most widely used, as compared to the steel fitting. Why the plastic fittings they are most widely used? Because plastic, it is chemical resistant material as well as corrosion resistant material as compared to the steel. And one more advantage is that ferrule can be separated from the fitting in case of plastic fitting, while in case of the stainless steel fittings directly the ferrule is attached to the fitting. So this is the main difference between the plastic fitting and the stainless steel fittings. After that, the next point that we are going to study, it is related to the sample solution and the sample volume. So as we have already discussed, in case of HPLC, the choice of a solvent or a choice of a mobile phase is a difficult task. Similar to that, sample preparation in the HPLC, it is also the most crucial part. For that, you have to consider the different parameters as well as the purity whenever you are dealing with the sample preparation in case of HPLC. So as far as HPLC is concerned, the HPLC is highly sensitive technique. As the HPLC is a highly sensitive technique, very small amount of sample is necessary for the analysis. So in case of HPLC, while you are selecting the mobile phase, you have to consider the different parameters. Similar to that, whenever you are considering the sample, your sample should be completely soluble in the mobile phase. This is the prerequisite condition for selecting the sample, because the sample as well as the solvent, they should be properly mixed together in order to analyze by using the HPLC system. Hence, whenever you are using the sample solution in HPLC, your sample solution should be completely soluble in mobile phase. One more important part is that before injecting the sample solution into the HPLC column, you have to check the purity. The amount of sample injected inside the HPLC column, it should be as small as possible. And one more important aspect, that is you have to check the purity. For that purpose, commercially HPLC grade samples as well as the solvents, they are directly available, so you can directly purchase and use the HPLC grade solvents. So whenever you are dealing with the HPLC, what are the conditions that you have to consider for a sample? The first thing is the sample should be highly pure. Second, your sample should be completely soluble in the mobile phase or the solvent that you are using in HPLC. And the third one is the amount of sample injected inside the HPLC, it should be minimum 1. So these are the different aspects that we have to study while considering the sample solution or a sample volume. Now, after this, we have already discussed the different solvent properties that we have to consider while using the HPLC. The different solvent properties that we have to consider, they are as viscosity or the refractive index or the strength of a solution or their UV absorbance property. So all these are the different properties of solvent that we have to consider while going for the HPLC analysis. So after studying the sample solution, the next point that we are going to discuss, it is related to the shelf life of the solvent. We have already discussed the different solvent properties different solvent properties in our earlier lecture of HPLC. Now today we will discuss about the shelf life of a mobile phase or a shelf life of a solvent. So it is always a good practice to prepare the mobile phase or to prepare a solvent, as it will be needed and it will be used in a shorter time. So it is always better to prepare the solvent in minimum quantity or in required quantity so that you can utilize them in a shorter period of time. Because while using the mobile phase or a solvent, it is very necessary to consider the shelf life, because the use of a solvent is very limited and restricted to the specific time period. If you use it beyond the time period or beyond the shelf life, then it will not give you the original results or the accurate result. Hence, in order to obtain the precise and accurate result, it is very necessary to use the mobile phase within its shelf life, and depending upon the shelf life, the mobile phase is to be prepared in a definite quantity. You should not prepare the mobile phase or a solvent in an extra volume. So what are the shelf life for the different solvent that we will see? If you are using simply the water from the water purification system, then it has a shelf life of 3 days. Secondly, if you are using the aqueous solution without buffer, then again it has a shelf life of 3 days. Then the next is the buffer solution. Whenever you are using the buffer solution as a solvent, then it has also a shelf life of 3 days. Now the next thing is that whenever you are using an aqueous solution with less than 15% of the organic solvent, then the shelf life is about 1 month. whenever you are using a aqueous solution with less than 15% of the buffer solution, then the shelf life is 1 month. Whenever you are using the aqueous solution with greater than 15% of the organic solvent, then it has a shelf life of 3 months. And if you are using the pure organic solvents, then again it has the shelf life of 3 months. So this is about the different solvents that we are using as well as their shelf life. Now the last point that we will discuss today, it is related to the buffers. Now coming to the buffers, buffer is a substance which is used to maintain the constant pH of a solution, or buffer is a substance which resists the change in pH of a solution even with the addition of strong acid or a strong base in it. So buffers, they are generally required for the ion exchange chromatography. They are also frequently used in case of normal phase HPLC, and at the same time they are also used for the reversed phase HPLC. So basically, if you consider the buffers, they are of two types, either acidic or basic. So these are the two types of buffer. Now buffers at a pH 2 units lower than the pKa value will give you the dissociated levels of the species, or the basic buffer greater than 7 pH, acidic buffer less than 7 pH. Now concerning the acidic or the basic condition which is required for the HPLC column, you will adjust the pH of your solution. So buffers, they are used in ion exchange chromatography as well as in case of HPLC. Buffers, they will give you two types of analytes basically, either the acidic analytes or the basic analytes. So whether we call it as the acidic analytes, that is buffers at pH 2 units lower than the pKa value. It will give you the ionized species, or what we call it as anions. While for basic buffer at 2 pH units higher than 2 units higher than the pKa value, it will give you the cations. So either you will use the acidic buffers or the basic buffer. What are the buffer solution whenever you are using by using the HPLC? Then you have to first filter the buffer, and after the process of filtration, then you can use the buffer for the further process, because there are the chances of the bacterial growth or the fungal growth in case of buffer solution. Hence it is very necessary to preserve the buffer in clean bottle as well as to use the buffer solution which is of high purity, and you have to first filter it and then you have to use it in case of HPLC analysis. So we will just see about the different types of ions and their pKa value. So for acetate ion, it is 4.8. For ammonium ion it is 9.2. Then for borate ion again it is 9.2. Then for citrate ion it is again 3.1 or 4.7. And lastly for diethyl ammonium it is 10.5. So this is about the different types of ion with their pKa value. Hence with this discussion of buffer, here our topic, that is HPLC instrumentation, ends. Now in the next lecture we will begin with the next topic. Thank you.